Hello and welcome to Max Bonsai Techniques. This is part 2 of the series we're doing on repotting and trimming up Chinese corky bark elms. So I will get the tree for you to have a look, and then we will go through the process of repotting, trimming, seeing if any wiring is necessary, and attend to the tree that way. Well, as you can see, I have to confess this poor tree is somewhat neglected as well, and so today we'll have a look at trimming it back, and we'll just see what has to be done to the tree to get it back into a reasonable shape again, and also we'll do some repotting. So firstly, I'm going to show you what I do with trees before I pot them. Is I soak them in a bath of sea salt for a minimum of an hour, if not longer, before I start the repotting. So I'm going to prepare the bath now. Well, as I mentioned, I will soak the trees before potting in a bath of sea salt, and they will be in there for, as I say, a minimum of 1 hour, and possibly even longer than that. So the tree has been soaking for that period of time. So I'll take it out of the bath now, and we'll start and do the trimming. Now, don't forget, this is a Chinese corky bark elm, and I can get away with what I'm going to do. This tree really should have been attended to several weeks ago, and when I take off all the weeds, the roots will be fairly exposed, but that's okay with a corky bark Chinese elm. Now, we can't do that with every species, of course. Some species we have to be very careful with how much root we take off, what time of year we do it, and all of those sort of issues. Okay, so we're ready to start and do the trimming now and tidying a few things up. Okay, so any of these long ones here, they're really of no value, so that's going to come right back into there. I'll go through and just get rid of any of the little shoots that I really don't need at this time. So do those first. Get rid of a few leaves off my dead trees. So just checking around to see what we don't need. This down here. Just for the moment, I'm going to leave these little ones here because I may find those valuable later on, but we'll just keep going through. So, as you can see, I'm just looking for the excess ones at the moment. Then so what I'll do, I'll go through and just check that out. Then I'll start and remove some of the larger pieces that have grown out, and they will come right back in to right down to the bottom leaves there, because we don't need all of that. Something like this here you'd bring that right back in to where there's just a couple of shoots right inside there. This sort of thing here, we can virtually get rid of that altogether. Up here there's a couple little shoots, so we'll come back to those. This here, we can come back, get rid of that. So I'll go through and do that, and then I'll come back and show you a little bit more of the finer trimming, and we'll take it from there. I'm going to just show you what I do with some of these shorter ones. So when we get ones like this, I would bring those back to just a couple of leaves. And that will give us much better ramification. So you'll have to just go around the tree and check for the for this sort of thing. This one here, I'll bring that back down to about there, and we will get ramification, and you'll have this sort of thing here which you can trim back as well. So we'll go right over the tree and get rid of all of those. So I'll do that a little later, just to save us a bit of time. Now, one thing with trimming a tree like this, you can be very sure you're not going to get it all in the one go. You'll have to go over the tree several times to make sure that you've trimmed it back to the way that you want. Now, another thing with Corky bark Chinese elms, they are notorious for dead wood during each season. So each season you'll be pretty sure you'll end up getting some dead wood on the tree, and so what we'll do is get rid of those, and you need to go right through your tree and get rid of all of the dead wood. So that doesn't affect the tree in the long term. So yes, we just carefully go through and keep trimming back until you're happy with it, and that, as I say, that will give you much better ramification, and you'll slowly work your way around and get rid of all those. Okay, so that'll do for the trimming for the time being. Now, could this tree do with some bending of branches? Well, yes, it certainly could. I'll just show you some of my ideas. I won't take the time to actually wire it and do it, but I'll just show you some of the things I intend to move. So this one here, for instance, I would bring that down and maybe a little forward. This one will be similar, it'll come down, and that may even come a little bit forward as well. Now up here, the tree down this area here is a little exposed, so there are some branches that I could bring in. That one, this one here, we could bend those in and just create a little more foliage in this area here. From this area up, it's quite acceptable to not see the actual trunk. So that's planned for a little bit later on. But as I say, I won't do that now. It'll take a fair bit of time. So I'll lift the tree out of the pot. This tree is very heavy. This rock is extremely heavy, so it's not wired in, and it doesn't need anything to hold it in place. It's just so heavy. So I'll lift it out, and then I'll show you how I go about getting rid of all the weeds and the moss and getting it ready to repot it. So let's see if we can get this out of the pot for the moment. Got to be a bit careful not to grab hold of the bark area here, because you could damage that. So let's have a look see. Okay, so we're able to get it out of the pot quite okay. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to bring the tub of water or the tub of sea salt back up and show you how I go about getting rid of the weeds and moss in a tree such as this. What do we do? I'm going to just simply keep moving off the soil. There's lots of roots underneath. We'll go around and by just continuing to work on the soil, loosening it up, you'll get all that soil off and you won't hurt the roots at all. So I'll just keep working my way around, and we'll get back to this in a moment. The root system is certainly fairly dense, and it looks like it should have been repotted some time back. So I'm needing the assistance of my faithful rake to open up some of this soil so that we can get to all of the roots. So I'll go around and continue to do this, loosen up all of the soil and see if we can get to most of the roots, and then we'll see what needs to be trimmed off. Well, as you can see, there are lots and lots of roots. We'll have to go through and get rid of some of these big ones that have curled around inside the pot. So we'll get rid of some of these. So that's most probably enough, especially because of the time of year that I'm doing this. So that'll give us plenty of nice fresh soil that'll fit in the pot and give the roots another go to grow out into lovely new soil. So what I'll do at this stage is I'll get the pot up and get that ready, and then we'll go through what mix I'm going to put in to pot up the tree. Okay, so I've put some soil in the bottom of the pot, and I've put a mound in the centre of the pot so that when we put the tree in, that will force that up into the bottom of the root system. I use a fairly coarse mix. I'll explain what the mix is a little later, and that will be the primary mix that I would use to pot this tree. And then later on, just to finish off, I'll show you another potting mix that I will put on top. The reason being, I use perlite in my mix, and perlite is very, very light, and it will tend to come to the surface with watering. So by putting this other mix on top, that prevents that from happening. But I'll show you that later. So let's put the tree in now. Okay, so I've chosen the front of the pot, and so we'll try and get the tree down into the pot sufficiently. I may have a little bit too much potting mix there at the moment, so we'll just remove a little bit, I think. I'll get rid of this root that's going to tend to stick up. I may even have to remove just a wee bit more to get it started. Okay, I'm fairly happy with that. So what I'm doing is I'm favouring the rock toward this side here, and then as this branch is bent down, it'll favour out this side of the pot a little more. So I'm just going to do a quick check around and get rid of any roots that are going to just stick up on us. I think that should work quite okay now. Now, as I mentioned in part one of this series, when I'm putting the soil in, the traditional way, of course, is to use chopsticks to get your soil down into the root system. Now, I haven't done that for years. I use water to get the soil in because I don't like to use the chopstick because it may damage some of the very finer roots. I know it's a little bit different to what a lot of people will do, but that's what I've been doing for a number of years now, and that seems to have been very, very successful. So I'm going to put some more of this coarse potting mix in and work that right down into the pot. So to do that, I'll get the tub up here again so that when I'm watering we'll be able to catch the water. Okay, so I've got the tub here now, and I'll put some more soil in and I'll use the hose to water that in. So we just gently water the bonsai mix in. That'll get that right down into the roots and mix that right through. Get rid of any air pockets. You'll find that the potting mix will tend to drop down, so we can add a little bit more in when it's necessary. Just keep adding the soil in as necessary till you get a level that you're happy with. Now, as I mentioned, I'm going to put another just a little layer over the top of this, so I don't want the tree, I don't want the soil to be right up to the level, so I'll just work this in first. I'll give the water a chance to run out, and then I'll put the other level of soil on. The other level of soil won't have to be watered in. It'll just be covering the perlite, so that as I water, the perlite won't tend to rise up above the top of the pot. Well, as I mentioned, this soil is finer soil. It's a mixture of soil, and it has a very fine zeolite in it, and I just use this to cover the top here so that the perlite won't rise. So we'll just sprinkle some of this around. So that's basically the soil done now, and what I will do is this tree will be given a drink of sea salt at least twice a week for a couple of weeks. Then I'll go to liquid fertiliser, and I'll use Charlie Carp and Power Feed. And what I do there is 1 week I'll give it a drink of Power Feed, a couple of weeks later I'll give it a drink of Charlie Carp, and I'll do that until I see nice new growth appearing, and then I will then feed the tree with sea mungus. So hopefully that should all come back quite okay. As I say, being a Corky bark Chinese elm, they are somewhat forgiving, and so I think that will come back quite all right. Well, I hope that was informative, and I'll just turn the tree around for you to have a quick look. So that's the tree basically done. As I said before, it will need some wiring, and there are still lots and lots of little shoots I can already see that still need trimming, so I'll go over it again and trim those and get some wiring on, and hopefully eventually it might become a nice bonsai. So thank you for that, and I hope you enjoyed it. This is my primary mix, and it's made up of the bonsai mix that you can purchase from Rayneski, and then zeolite, the larger size zeolite, and then perlite. So what I do is I mix 2 litres of this zeolite into Ray's potting mix, into a bag of Ray's potting mix, and then that is mixed together. Then I will then mix that 50-50 with the perlite, and that will become my primary mix, which will be used in most of my trees. This is my secondary mix that I showed you for covering up the soil that has the perlite in, to stop the perlite from rising when the tree is watered. But also I will use this mix for minis, so that I don't have the large particles that I have in my primary mix. As you can see, this zeolite here is much finer than the zeolite that's in the primary mix. I put 2 litres of this size zeolite into a bag of Ray's potting mix, and that will become my secondary mix.